G'day everyone, I'm Smokescreen and welcome back to another video, and welcome back to round 3 of Nations Cup Test Season 3 that went on in Gran Turismo 7. As I sit here recording, the official season has been announced. This race here, round 3, is the final test season race before the official season, and it's in the Nations Cup. We're at Suzuka, and we are in Group 2. We are driving the 2016 Nissan Nismo GTR, or Nissan GTR Nismo GT500 car. It's no longer got the Thermaltake branding on it. Maybe a mid to low 48. Let's see. But in this qualifying session, I'm after a mid to low 48. That's what I was thinking at the time. And what I'm actually going to do is introduce something new here. I'm going to let you sit back and enjoy the sounds of this lap. So that up there, provisional pole position so far, a 10th and a half ahead of Rangeros, and Meta 7 comes across the line as well to take out provisional third, but that was a 47.5, so a fairly decent lap there actually. I was only sort of expecting, I probably would have liked a low 48, and the fact that we're in the 47s, we get a little bit out of shape heading through Degna 1, and that is that lap down the toilet as we cut across Degna 2 as well. But yeah, so I'm going a little bit faster than I expected, which is good. We kind of made a similar mistake at Degna this time, keeping the car under control but cutting Degna 1 too much. So something in GT7 here, you can no longer cut Degna 1 like you could in GT Sport, because the curb physics are a lot more pronounced in this game, so you can't just sort of glide over the top of the curb like you could at Degna 1 in GT Sport. Instead it chucks the car up into the air, and I think the penalty is also a little bit more aggressive at Degna 1 as well. So we're only sort of getting half the car up on that curb, and it's still sketchy at the best of times. But this lap is actually going to be my final run in qualifying, as we've been overtaken by Rangeros and Sidorg. We get through turn 1 and 2 absolutely beautifully on that particular time, turning into turn 3 just as the tyre marks start, and then sort of just balancing the car through here, try and meet each curb and get all over that green stuff, because it pulls the car around the corner. Turn 6 now, keep it to the right hand side, or as far over to the right as you can, to open up Dunlop curve, and that leads us nicely down towards the Degnas. Just before the 50 metre board, little dab of the brake, turn in, leap the curb just before the end of the curb on the left hand side, brake for Degna 2, commit back onto the throttle, gently but quickly, and we're 3/10 up, heading through that second sector split, braking on the end of the curb on the right hand side for the hairpin. Second gear for the hairpin this time. You don't quite need first gear in this car for the extra rotation. You might need that in maybe an older car, but in this particular car you don't quite need it. Get back on the throttle, down through 200R, and we're going to be heading up towards Spoon, braking just on the access road, halfway between the 100 and the 50 metre boards, and then braking just as we, just before we pass that corner marker, halfway through on the outside of Spoon. You know, try and touch each curb nice and gently, but don't touch the AstroTurf that lies beyond the curb. Heading down the backstretch now up towards the famous 130R, turn 15 here. Still about 3/10 up. We've lost a slight bit of time there. We maybe don't get the best 130R, just cutting too much of that inside braking just before the 100 meter board. You can cut these curves. The car gets slightly unstable through that first curb of the Casio triangle, and we don't quite get the best run through there, but thankfully the run up to the line's pretty short, but we are only able to bring home a 1.5 improvement to a 47.4. I definitely think there was room to improve quite a bit more there, but ultimately by the end of the session, because we wrecked a couple of laps, we only had limited time left to actually go for that. So ultimately it's going to be third. I got no clue, I don't know what to do. Mediums you fall back, softs will get held up. And while I was sitting here in third, it's still provisional of course, the session's still going on. I was tossing up what tyre compound to go on to, I wasn't sure, but we'll find all that out, including where we start, after the Nations Cup introduction. Lovely as always, and we meet ourselves on the grid. We're going to see where we start, which is third, as you can see there. Look at that livery as well. I'm not normally a massive fan of Red Bull in general, Red Bull liveries, but this particular one with the purple and the infinity, oh, it just looks so good. Almost hypnotizing purple. But as we start this race, you can see down on the bottom left of your screen, we have decided to select the medium tyres. What was going through my head is that I didn't want to start on the softs if maybe Psydog was going to start on the mediums, because I would have caught up to the back of Psydog and, you know, I probably would have gotten held up, because this track, you know, I think it's a really good track actually. I've come to really enjoy Suzuka. It's quite a satisfying lap to get right. However, in racing situations, you're going to have quite a torrid time overtaking through a lot of this section, pretty much all the way up from turn 2 to the hairpin. Basically you're going to struggle to overtake. Maybe you can get something done into Spoon, and the chicane is one of the best places to overtake here, but as you can see at the start of this race, I don't think that's what Psydog has done. I think Psydog has started on the softs. As with Ranger Oz, you would start on the softs if you started on pole, but they're driving away. I'm well out of the slipstream range now. That gap's opening up to 1.8 seconds, but yeah, I was worried. I was like, I don't want to start on the softs if I'm going to get held up if someone is on mediums up ahead. But then I was sort of worried about starting on the mediums, because like I don't want to fall back. Maybe if Meta 7 has started on the softs, sort of get engaged in a battle, you know, I don't want to fall further back into the pack and start battling. I want to just lap on my own and lap cleanly and lap consistently. But I weighed up the pros and cons, and I thought the risk of the cars ahead of me starting on mediums was a lot lower than cars behind me starting on softs, so I decided to start on the mediums myself. And you know what? Also, what was running through my mind is that I thought I backed myself to be able to keep ahead of Meta 7 if we were both on mediums, as opposed to sort of making the right adequate gains on the cars up ahead if we were all on the softs. So I was thinking I don't want to get stuck in a battle up ahead on the softs if that was to happen, so we've decided to start on the mediums. Now the mediums, I believed, lasted about 8 laps, and then you could do the remainder on softs. But we'll see how that strategy plays out here. Oh, Psydog's off the track at turn 1, so that's something else we have to be really careful about. We're back at Suzuka, but Suzuka has a really notorious turn 1. Notoriously difficult, a really dangerous turn 1, and Psydog is the first car to have fallen victim to that in this race. He's driven off the track at turn 1, and now he's right ahead of me, but I think he's going to be on the soft tyres, and I think that's confirmed, as even though he's had dirty tyres heading through turn 1, heading through sector 1 here rather, he's still opened that gap back up to 1.2. So I definitely don't have the pace that Psydog has at this particular stage, but I wasn't too worried about it because, you know, on one hand, he's probably on the soft tyres. On the second hand, it's Sidorg, and I sort of never expect to be on the pace. He's got a penalty. I didn't even notice. He's got himself a penalty. I'm not quite sure what that's for. I can't imagine it would have been for running off at turn 1. Maybe he's cut Degner 1 a little bit too much, but he's going to serve that penalty. But the main thing we have to keep an eye on, and something that's much more important in terms of our race and who we normally race, is Meta 7 just behind me. He's 9 tenths behind me at this stage, which I have been since informed is within the slipstream range. Slipstream effects now begin from as far back as 1 second. However, the rebuttal is it's a lot weaker than it was in GT Sport. So we are now looking for a 1 second gap in terms of slipstream, where we would traditionally be looking for a 7.5 tenth gap. But Sidorg serves that penalty halfway down the back straight, and he's back within slipstream range. He's 7 tenths ahead of me now, so we are going to be feeling these slipstream benefits heading down the main straight, but he gets a much better Casio triangle there, and he's opened that gap back up. So the fact that he's able to sort of recover from these mistakes and immediately start gaining on me kind of confirms for me for a fact that he's going to be on the soft tyres. Ranger Oz looks a lot more comfortable out in the lead. Oh, wow, that was close. Oh my god, that was too close. So of course, having just come off the back of the qualifying session where we were all on the softs, jumping into the race on the mediums with now a full tank of fuel, I've got to be ultra careful of turn 1, and that particular time there was way too close in terms of a mistake. So we are going to have to be really, really careful heading in towards turn 1. So we've learnt a lesson from that particular mistake. We skip ahead to lap 4. The gap's just kind of opened up. Meta 7 now 1.2 behind. So we are slightly quicker than him at this stage in the race. Sidorg 4.4 seconds up the road, and we're still setting personal best sectors. Still setting consistent 1 minute 50s. But as we exit the hairpin here, just slightly too much oversteer, and we end up sliding into the barrier on the inside. Meta 7 straight past. Crimson is going to get past for 5th position, or he's going to grab 4th, and it's going to demote me down into 5th. And that is no good in terms of my race there. And there's no team radio there. I didn't really say too much. I think I just said damn it and moved on, because I knew that dwelling on a mistake like that was only going to make me upset and angry and just sort of make me more likely to make a mistake. So I was like, okay, let's minimize the time loss here. We'll come across the line and see exactly how much time I lost from that, because we're going to be able to compare the lap times there. We're 3 seconds down at that sector split there though, so I think it's safe to say we've lost about 3 seconds from that particular mistake. I've gone slightly deep with the chicane here, so we're learning lessons. Damn it, that might be a penalty now. And I was worried I may have got myself a penalty on the second apex there, but we'll see as we head down the main straight whether we get away with that or not. There's nothing flashing up, so I think we've just about escaped a penalty there. But that point in the race is definitely where I sort of have to learn some lessons. I spun out of the hairpin. I nearly went off at turn 1, so I have to be careful of turn 1, and I will be careful from now on. Spun out of the hairpin, I've got to be careful on the traction there too, and I went deep at the chicane. So now that I'm sort of pushing the car, trying to make this time back, I've got to make sure I still hit my braking points, and don't push the braking points, because if there's something you can't do... Oh, we've done it at turn 1. We've just flown in slightly too hard, but we've got to just minimise the time loss there. Got to make sure we don't lose any further positions. We've got Paco 71 behind now. He's looking up the inside at turn 3. Slight bit of contact as he sort of edged his nose up the inside. We've just got to recover from the dirty tyres and just park the bus, make sure he doesn't get past through all these corners, and he's going to wash out wide from turn 6 thanks to the dirty air. You're able to see that down on the radar, and that sector split, not happy. That sector split was 2.4 seconds down, so I think we've lost another couple of seconds there. So ultimately, at this particular stage in the race, we've lost about 5 seconds from mistakes, which is obviously not ideal. But we're just going to see how this race goes, because we can have a look at the end and see what the gaps are like. If I sort of gain a position, or if I finish... Just giving him the undercut. If I finish more than 5 seconds off the car in front of me, then I probably wouldn't have got that position anyway without the mistakes. But we're going to begin to see some pit stops now as we head into the sort of the middle stages of the race. Meta 7 goes into the pits ahead of me, and he was ahead of me, so I could have reacted to him. But I think in my mind, I wanted to make it to the end of lap 8 on my medium tyres. Meta 7 was also on mediums, which is good. I would have expected him to be on mediums given the pace at the start. But yeah, I was worried now because I didn't quite sort of think about it. I was just more focused on making it to the end of lap 8, which is the goal I gave myself at the start of the race. But Meta 7 went in ahead of me, so I was now worried about him coming out on the softs. and giving him an undercut. Yes, he was ahead of me, but that gap probably would have been made a little bit bigger, or it probably will be made a little bit bigger when he comes out on his softs and does an extra lap on the softs while I'm still on my worn medium tyres. The gap to Crimson, I think, was over 2 seconds at one stage. It's now back to 1.9, so we are gaining ever so slightly, but Crimson is definitely no slouch. He's actually a little bit of a newcomer, a little bit of an up-and-coming star in Oceania here. He's definitely showing quite good pace and rising up the field, which is really good to see. Or new drivers entering the fray is always something really positive to see. Leaders are in, soft apiece. Soft tyres, as expected, but Sidorg probably isn't going to make the gains he would have liked because he had a couple of mistakes. I mean, I have now as well. Crimson stays out. I'm going to head in on the end of lap 8, select my soft tyre, and no refuel because it's also a slight fuel-saving race, which we haven't really touched on yet. Okay, not going too well, but we'll see what we can do. That'd be better 7 up there. Oh no! Of course I come out in traffic, damn it! And we come out just behind somebody who's still on an old set of tyres. Frustratingly, we're less than half a second behind him. If we didn't make those mistakes, we would be ahead of this guy. So I'm now hemorrhaging time. There's one I haven't said for a while. Absolutely hemorrhaging time behind this guy. I'm on my brand new soft tyres. I should be gaining leaps and bounds through this section, but I'm not able to drive any faster than Darren is, who on the best of days, I'm quite a bit faster than. So it was quite frustrating. He jumped out of the way, though. I was flashing my headlights, to be fair. Thank you. And I am by no means under the impression that flashing the headlights means that somebody ahead needs to get out of the way, but I may as well take advantage of the fact that some people will probably do it. Just as Darren has here. He's made the right decision there because all I would have done is sent it up the inside of the hairpin probably, and we both would have lost time. So I think Darren just minimising his losses there, maybe taking advantage of some slipstream benefits, as long as it lasted, was the right thing to do. It's the genuine gap. Bit disappointing on my end, but what can you do? Just not bloody crash, that's what you can do. Sage advice from myself, feel free to abide by it. But that's the gap, 6.8 to Meta 7. That's the job we've given ourselves. I didn't realise at the time, but I've only lost 5 seconds to mistakes. So Meta 7 now 6.8 ahead of me, and well, he was behind me at the start of the race. So he definitely made an undercut there. Actually, he definitely got an undercut on me. I lost 5 seconds of mistakes. The gap ahead is now 6.8 to Meta 7. So yeah, he definitely got an undercut. But what he now has is a 1 lap disadvantage in terms of tyre life. So he's got 1 lap older tyres than me. So all I've got to do now, as a load of people went into the pits and we find ourselves equalised, back up into the correct net position of 4th, all we've got to do is make 0 mistakes. We've just got to hit all our marks, hit all our braking points. That first sector split there was a purple lap up on Sidorg's 48.3. We've got ourselves a 50.6 so far, but this is actually our first lap on the brand new soft tyres. Our previous lap was an out lap, so it doesn't count. We're 1 second up there, so we're on track for a 49.6 so far. Yeah, we were 1 second up there, but we've still got time to gain. We've still got half the lap to gain time, which we are going to do because these soft tyres are going to give me a grip advantage absolutely everywhere. Spoon is going to be a big place because that's a sort of grip-dependent corner. Gap to Meta 7 down to 6.4, so we've gained a couple of tenths through there, but with only sort of five and a bit laps to go, obviously gaining 2 tenths every half a lap is not going to be enough time gain to Meta 7, so the only thing... I don't think I can gain 6 seconds. And there it is. I knew it at the time as well. I thought 6 seconds was a tall order, and we'll see how that goes. 1.6 seconds up at that second to last sector split. The last sector split, of course, happens at the finish line. But heading it towards the chicane, make sure we meet that apex, which we do. Meet that apex, which we do. Exit turn 18 down towards the edge of the pit wall. We do sort of return slightly to the left. There you go. 48.7, so a few tenths off Sidorg's fastest lap, but if you're in the 48s in race pace, you're doing fairly well for yourself. That was sort of the lap time I was half expecting qualifying, so the fact that we're in the 48s here is obviously really promising signs. The gap to Meta 7, 6.2, and as we skip ahead to sort of halfway through lap 11 now, gap to Meta 7, 5.5. We're beginning to gain quite significantly here. The other thing we have to contend with now is the change in conditions as well. You can see as we head through turn 14 here, the exit of Spoon, it's now sort of in the shade. The time of day is changing. That's something we have in Gran Turismo 7, is the dynamic time of day. So we have dynamic weather, but sort of everywhere there's also dynamic time of day. So it will, everywhere you go, time trial sessions, races, it will always cycle through a day-night transition, and sort of depending on the start time of the race will determine what sort of transition you get. This particular race was sort of an afternoon into sunset race, so we do have to contend with the sun in positions which could potentially blind some of our markers. And you'll see heading through here, look at the sun through there, just sort of obscuring our view ever so slightly heading through Spoon, and it was making that outside curb halfway through Spoon quite difficult to spot, which is not something you want, because that is a pressure point of Suzuka, is running in too hot into Spoon and ending up on that slippery AstroTurf on the outside. As we head through the chicane, look how dark it's got now. That sun has just dipped below the horizon, but something else we can see is through the course of this final stint, we've done a 48.7, a 49.0, a 49.2 and a 49.2. Gap to Meta 7, 2.4 seconds. We're gaining sort of leaps and bounds here, and I think at this stage in the race I was sort of starting to think maybe I was gaining enough time to be able to put an overtake on him. We have 2 laps to go, but something we have to watch out for is once we get within a second, we are going to be getting the beginning of the slipstream benefit, which becomes dirty air through the corners. So it's one thing to catch up, it's another thing to get past. What's that, a famous Formula 1 saying or something? So we are going to have to sort of make sure we catch up as quickly as possible and give ourselves the best chance of overtaking him. We're 2.1 seconds behind him now. We've caught up 3/10, but as we head through here, look at this spark. That spark tells the story, because as we return to the live footage, Meta 7's gone off the track at Degna 1. We get that overtake done off the back of that mistake there. Meta 7 has made a crucial error, and it's given me a look into this 3rd position. It's giving me an easy, premature overtake for the podium spot. I've got my 3rd position back after a series of mistakes from myself. We find ourselves 7.5 seconds behind Sidorg, and now we know we've only lost 5 in mistakes.
Got my podium back. Jeez, man.
And I can tell you, all I was focusing on was meeting my braking points, meeting my turning points, making sure I don't spin out on the exit of the hairpin, which I had learned from earlier in the race. And Meta 7 made a crucial mistake. I obviously feel bad for him. It's not something that I enjoy doing, making a mistake when I'm sort of under pressure from somebody catching. But it's something that happens, and I can only sort of reap the benefits of it if it does happen to a competitor.
6.8. I'd crashed twice.
But as we come up towards the final lap, I was looking at the gap to the leader, 6.8 seconds, and I was thinking at the time I probably would have been able to win this if I didn't make those silly mistakes. But isn't hindsight a wonderful thing? Because I now know, with only a 5-second loss to mistakes and a 7-second gap to the leader, it probably would have been a quite a tall order to actually win this race.
Frustrating. Bloody frustrating first stint. Hadn't practiced the mediums on the full fuel.
Got to get my racing driver excuses in, of course, but we are going to bring home a podium position, and this was actually the first slot of the night, which is slightly unusual because the level of competition here was not as high as it normally would be. We had no Andrew Lee, we had no Twitchy, no Atom, I think it was a couple of other sort of staple top split drivers that weren't in that particular race there, so I was worried about the points in the second slot. We got 259 for that 3rd position there, and that's the reason why I didn't go again, because it was only 283 for the win. You can see Sidorg's got 283 points there. I was under the belief that a second slot, potentially without Sidorg, potentially without Ranger Oz, was unlikely to be 260 points or more for the win. So I left that round there. Frustrating first stint, and of course, once again in hindsight, I only lost 5 seconds to mistakes. We were about 7 seconds off the lead, so that leaves about a 2-second advantage that I still probably would have needed to gain on raw pace alone, on top of not making the 2 errors that I did. So I think winning that race was maybe a little bit further out of reach than I perhaps thought at the end of it. But ultimately, at the end of the day, 259 points is sort of fairly decent. I'm not going to complain about that at all. It's funny to think I used to accept 200 points as sort of a really good result, and then a 220, and now as I sit here, I would sort of like to be getting the 250 or more, which I think is perfectly achievable, and even with a couple of mistakes there, I still was able to get it. But I do feel bad for Meta 7. He obviously didn't want to make that mistake, but you know, it happens. He's still got 247 and a 4th position, which is still nothing to sneeze at. And there you can see Crimson down in 5th, which is a good result from him. But as for this video, it's going to be the end of it today, so do hit the like button if you enjoyed, and do subscribe if you'd like to see more videos and streams from me. Do leave a comment as well, as questions, comments, and constructive criticism, as always, very much appreciated. But that's going to be the end of this video today, and that means that is it from me. So once again, I do thank you very much for watching. See you later.